One thing that I've noticed when it comes to older people is that they can be extremely obstinate in their ways. And I'm not sure if you have noticed, maybe you have family, maybe you know someone that's older, and you start to notice their behavior, right? Like a lot of older people, they're super like stubborn when it comes to new things. Like a lot of older people, they don't want to try new things. They're afraid to do new shit. And for some reason, it's like maybe it's the way they grew up, it's the traditional mindset is that they're so stuck in their ways of doing something a certain way, you know? Say for instance, like you have a family member that's older. It could be, I mean, this could be any age, for ranging from like 40s beyond. And it's like you notice that they're so stuck on doing something a certain way, and this could apply to anything, you know? This isn't like a one shoe fits all type of concept that I'm trying to convey here. It's it's that like their mindset is that older people know that the world is changing, right? They know that the world is changing. Things are not going to stay the same, right? But their mindset is so fixed on, oh, it has to be this way, it has to be my way. But they don't understand that their way isn't working anymore. It's not. You could even see it, you notice it with politicians and the way governments are ran. It's like the governments are a lot of governments around the world are failing, you know? You see it in the United States government. I'm not gonna talk bad about Trump, but like, I mean, look at them. Look at the way older people do certain things, and they're so reluctant on involving younger people in making any decisions. And I think that is a major issue in society, is that older people who are still who still want to be in control of things. This could apply to anywhere, at a workplace, with family, in the government, anywhere. Is that older people want to do things their way. They want to have things a certain way, and their way is not working. It's very obvious it's not working. And you'll even see that whatever it is they're doing isn't working, cuz you'll notice like they're the decline in the productivity and the structure. It's like, say for instance, making money. Older person is so traditional, they think that, oh, this certain type of business will work, when in actuality this times are changing. No, that business is probably not gonna work nowadays, because that's not how we do things. We have technology now. Like, if you're not involving technology in whatever it is you're doing, then that's falling behind. And like, that's one example. um Another thing is like the way family structured, is that we don't have typical, like, traditional families anymore. Families are changing. And yeah, I believe in having a nuclear family. It's just that the way people are doing things, and like the way family is structured, is kind of changing. Like the way they, they raise their children is different. Times are different, so we have to raise children in a different way. Older people didn't have to prepare too much for adulthood because everything was already mapped out for them. It was already mapped out. Oh, you're gonna do this at a certain age. You're gonna do XYZ, and they just did it. But nowadays, when people have children, it's like you can't raise them the same as you did back in the fucking 90s or 60s or the the 80s, whenever, because now we got technology. Paths are different. People, there's different paths to go down. And nowadays we have to raise children in a non-traditional way. Even with technology, we have to be careful how we introduce that to children. And a lot of older people just don't understand that times change, and that we can't do things the same way as we have in the past. You'll notice a lot of older people in their attitudes, like they, especially older people who aren't successful anymore, or like let's say that a family member might judge or criticize a younger person for, oh, what makes you think you start that thing if it'll work? But that's not how things are ran anymore. Things are changing. We have AI and shit like that. So they don't they don't see the vision like a younger person would. And they tend to look down on younger people and to scrutinize them and to make them think, well, since they may not have made it in their life, oh, how dare you try to make it? What makes you think that's gonna work? But they're too reluctant to try anything new. They've already tried all their old ways of doing things. And they can see that it doesn't work in this day and age. It doesn't. And it's and they refuse to try anything new. So a lot of older people, you'll notice, will kind of just like do nothing. And that's fine, but they don't realize that they still may have time to learn things, try new things, still make money and accomplish whatever, but they don't want to do that. It's like most don't. They don't want to try new shit. They don't want to they don't want to adapt. you know? And then I notice a lot of older folks, they tend to get stubborn, and some of them even become like upset because they just look at younger people and they're like, how dare you do that thing? How dare you try that? What makes you think that's gonna work? Well, no. What about the way you're doing things? What makes you think that's gonna work? What the same mindset of like, oh, if I do this career or if I keep doing this like little habit or something, it's in times are different, they stick to a certain way of doing things, a certain mindset that may have worked for them in the past, but nowadays it doesn't work. And they might be frustrated, because there, like I said, being younger, we're more willing to try new methods of doing things, and and new methods of doing things to adapt to the changing world, and yeah, a lot of older people I notice they're not willing to sharpen their axe, and do different shit. They're stuck in a certain mindset, you know, and the younger people are more willing to adapt. We're open to learning things that can benefit us. We can truly change things for the better. However, trying to get older people to advance is not it's not gonna it's not really gonna work. If older people are stuck in their ways of doing things, and you see how the world is functioning, right? Like, you see how governments are still being ran, you see how families, like, you notice things like the way most businesses are ran, the way most governments, families, whatever is ran, and it's like, we gotta change shit. Shit needs to be ran differently. It has to be a more effective way of doing things. You would notice that a lot of older people, they would try to find like the hardest, most convoluted way to do something. When a younger person could find some way to do something that's like boom, just like that, easy. But what I'm trying to say is not to offend any older people, like, who, is really just saying that, you would notice in life, like, you don't see as many older people willing to change and adapt, or to change their mindset or any behaviors that they adopted, you know. And there are older people that do change, that do adapt, but it's rare. Um, yeah, it's rare, and you might even see some younger people who don't, who don't want to adapt or whatever. But the thing is, it's not geared towards like offending any older people. It's just something I've noticed in some older people, like even in school. Maybe you've had a teacher, and it's like they teach the same fucking way that they've been teaching since the fucking 60s. You sit in the same schools being ran the same, and they wonder why kids nowadays, oh, they can't read, or they can't fucking, they don't memorize anything. They don't, like, because this, the way the structure is ran, still being ran the same, is not working like that. Education, government, whatever, is not like as effective as it should be. But you know like I said, as younger people become, mature, and we become wiser, then I, I believe the world could be better, be ran better. It'd be less like, because you'll notice, like, even the environment will probably be better. It's got to be more efficient ways to do shit that younger people are probably gonna have to come up with to fix whatever, the older generations didn't care to change. So it is what it is. But like I said, you'll notice, though, a lot of older people, you'll notice, like, are in positions of, where they might have some sort of authority over people, or even in a family. You might have a elder that, oh, we gotta take their advice, and it's like, nah, man, you don't, it's just good for, me. Like, yes, I believe that older people have wisdom that younger people should listen to. That's another thing, that, you know we should listen to older people, individuals, elders, and take their advice. However, it doesn't become helpful if that advice is also met with, like, scrutiny. That doesn't help, you know lead younger people on the right path. That's why you might see some younger people who might, make certain mistakes in their lifetime because perhaps they were scrutinized by, their elders. It might have been scrutinized or treated unfairly or looked down on. So, some younger people may rebel because of that. They might, be upset because of that, and, try to. But point being, I feel like, time's changing, and yeah, that's my message, to whomever, is like it's a growing divide within the generations. You would even notice people who protest or shit like that, mainly younger people, I would assume. And I don't know. Like, I mean, I know, but I'm starting to see somewhat of a pattern. And yeah, I just wanted to point it out, wanted to know what's your thoughts, whomever's watching, what's your thoughts on the topic. And I haven't heard anyone, speak on this before. So yeah, if you're stopping by, welcome to the channel. Don't forget, leave a like and comment below what your thoughts. Have you experienced stuff like this, or you know how do you feel? Have you, share your experiences. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more. Peace.